So we will get straight into things today, because it's our last webinar. Hooray! And also a bit bizarre because it's been such a big part of my life for the last few weeks, 10 weeks to be exact. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this course and hopefully you feel a lot more knowledgeable on the subject matter. Obviously those of you with more training experience may feel like pretty much ready to go and start implementing the knowledge and the topics that we've covered really. And for those of you who are doing the classroom sessions as well, obviously you're going to get a lot more hands-on experience. For those of you not doing that classroom sessions this time around, anyone who's done the online version already, when we reschedule the classroom sessions, you guys can book in just for the classroom sessions then as well. So all is not over technically, but hopefully the content of this is more than enough for those of you who have training experience to then go and implement behavior modification with reactive dogs from now onwards. So this last webinar, what we're going to talk about is hosting reactivity classes and workshops, and then we'll have a little chat, next slide, about just extra little closing remarks on reactivity, a little bit of information about your online exam, and then you are free to go and study for your online exam. So we will get started. This won't be a long one, but then I have uploaded, I'll double check, I think it's uploaded, a live, not a live obviously, but an example of a live reactivity class, a one-off workshop. So obviously you'll watch this PowerPoint and then you'll go and watch the live version of the class. So again, those of you who aren't coming and doing this in real life will at least have been there. So let's talk about workshops. I do love a good workshop. I mean, I am someone, I can stay here. I am someone who has very little free time in my life, very little time in my life. So if I can see 4 dogs in the space of 1 hour rather than one dog 4 times, it's more economic for me. It can be more cost effective for the clients then as well, and they need to practice. So of course, anything to do with reactivity, we're constantly telling the dog owners that every single time the dog practices the unwanted behavior, we're strengthening the old neurological association. Every time the dog practices the new behavior that we want them to do, and the new, I guess, associations that we want them to develop, then the more times they practice that, the stronger that neurological association becomes. So it's so important for us that our clients implement the behavior modification program we give them. And then we all know what real life is like and loose dogs are like and the world is like. So being able to create environments where they can practice their steps, especially in a more tricky environment because we are dealing with other reactive dogs then as well, it means that they'll get to really hone their skills while being observed by the trainers and stuff then as well. And it means they get a full hour of really diving into treating their activity. So obviously the benefits are that it's a controlled environment then as well. So you're less likely to have like random things happen, and the less random things that happen during a reactivity behavior modification session, the better. For a lot of clients, and this is something that you'll always keep in mind when you're going to see your cases, for a lot of your clients, there is a lot of shame, embarrassment, fear. There's a lot of fear with some reactive dog owners that something bad will happen while they're out on their walk and they won't be able to save their dog or the dog will do something and so on. So being able to practice the behavior modification in a non-judgmental environment is really important. And it allows them to kind of get to know other dog owners in similar situations. Depends how you run your business and so on. But if you're quite big on retention and big on ensuring that clients you hold their hand all the way, having these reactivity workshops means that these clients are around other similar clients who can then build relationships and then bond over reactive dogs. And before you know it, then you've got a weekly club going on where people are coming every week to practice and socialize and stuff as well. So it's lovely to put them in an environment where they don't feel that their dog is being judged or they're being judged. Allows them to practice the skills with your feedback. So that's, I guess, those, when you're a dog trainer, you do this all day, every day anyway. But one of the most important things, especially when we're working on a program that's critical for the safety of that dog and other dogs and humans as well, being able to hone your client's skills into a more refined way of practicing behavior modification means that then there's a lot more likelihood of success of the program. So being able to give them feedback and say, okay, no, what's your timing? Okay, see the way his ears start to prick forward whenever the other dog owner coughs, or see the way his body weight is shifted forward now. I think we're getting close, being able to spot when they're getting close to the threshold and that kind of stuff for the dog owner is massively beneficial, because then obviously they're fully invested. So when you say that, it's like, okay, that's important to me. I'm now knowledgeable about the fact that if the dog handler across the road starts coughing or moving erratically, I must then, do a treat and retreat, or, well, not a treat and retreat, that's a different program, do a squeak and retreat, or do something to get the dog out of that zone. So all these little skills or little tidbits of information that you're giving them during the workshops are going to just be so important to them when they're implementing the work at home. It also allows the dog the opportunity to work through the steps. So depends how your setup is going to be. But if you have a dog that's been to your premises for 2 training sessions already, had a great time with you, lots of treats, nice smells, all that kind of stuff, when they come in the 3rd time and it's a group workshop, they're going to feel more content in that environment, and they're going to be ready to do training in that environment, which means when you're using that environment for behavior modification, you're kind of 1 step forward then as well. You've put a bit of predictability in the environment, and then you're throwing it out the window because there's 3 other reactive dogs in the room today. But the dog knows the premises is a relatively safe place to be, and they've had their first impressions of it being a nice environment. So if you're able to use the same facility for the sessions, it can be more beneficial for the dog to get straight into training. They'll know what's going on. And again, like I said, it allows the dog to work through the steps. So while the client is learning how to handle the lead and observe what's going on and so on, the dog is also working its way through the steps. So while I think of behavior modification differently than training, and I guess I'm talking about operant conditioning then as well, in reality, the dog is constantly learning. So classical conditioning, counter conditioning is learning too. So the dog is learning a new way of behaving in situations where previously they behaved the old way. The trainer can work with multiple clients, so that's always good. Playing music. I've just got a notification saying playing music. I'm assuming that's just something I did. If anyone is hearing music, please let me know. Hopefully you're not. I can't even see the chat box. Sorry, 2 seconds. Okay, just wanted to open up the chat box because I got a notification saying that I'm playing music, which I don't think I am. Okay, so minimizing the risks of hosting reactivity workshops is so important. I don't want to block the dog, even though that is a real dog. I don't know. I think that's a fake dog. What do we think? Is that a real dog or a fake dog? It's a fake dog. Come on. Okay, sorry. Just had a moment there questioning my skill set. Okay, so minimizing the risk of hosting workshops. Obviously, dog-to-dog fights are the big risk. So that's the one that we massively need to minimize. And we will do that in a number of ways. So you can minimize it by ensuring that the clients have the dogs in double leads. So either a double-ended leash, like the Kong leads, halting leads, or a 2 leads, and both the risks for both leads, one attached to the collar, one attached to the harness. So I like to advise clients to wear a harness and a collar and have 2 leads or a double lead when they come to the class, just because it gives me a little bit more peace of mind that at least if they drop one lead, they have a hold of the other, or if the dog slips the collar, you still have a hold of the harness. And with the double-ended leads, I try to get them to put one in through their belt buckle or through their lead to just give them those free hands as well. Visual barriers are essential. I don't know how anyone would ever do a reactivity workshop without visual barriers, and there's lots of different setups. Now, when you're setting up your visual barriers, take into consideration your environment. So is there wind, is there rain, are these barriers going to get blown over, or is it cardboard that when it gets wet, it's going to get stodgy and fall apart? Or if you're indoors and so on, is it sturdy enough? If you have a big dog that jumps up against it, is the whole barrier going to get knocked over and give the dog a massive fright and screw up your entire workshop? All these things you need to think about. So making sure that the visual barrier is something that if it gets peed on, it won't kind of absorb it. So I generally look to avoid wood in any environment where there's dogs, because they can chew on it, they can pee on it, harbors bacteria and so on. If you're getting someone to build it, getting a steel frame barrier is helpful. What we're using in the video that you'll see, we've different stuff in the building, we've more sturdy barriers, but outside the building we've got crowd control barriers that we put carry board through. So Both are quite affordable if you're looking to get stuff. So you can get secondhand crowd control barriers for nothing, because once they're dented or not pretty, they go to the wayside. And the word, they get chucked aside. Wayside, fall to the wayside. I think that's the word. And carrier board you can get for dirt cheap as well. We generally buy carrier board in like 4x8 foot sheets. For if you get thin enough ones, it's about £8 or £10, £12, depending on the thickness. But you can attach them then to a frame as well. And because the carrier board is not, it's waterproof, you can wipe it down if the dogs do pee. An L-shaped control visual barrier is handy, because then the dog can't see both sides. But what you'll see in my layout in the next video is I have them lined up like horses in a stable, so they can't, there's nothing in front of them to see anyway, because I want to be able to control what they can see to the front, so that if we're doing repetitions of a dog passing, they all get to see the non-reactive dog while they can't see each other, if that makes sense. The visual barriers as well, make sure that they're high enough that your tall dogs can't see over it, or your bouncing springers can't see over it, but also short enough that the clients can see over it, and can see over it properly, because if it's like up to their nose, then they may miss a good area of floor space that's out of view as well. To minimize the fights you can, or the risk of a dog-to-dog fight, you could restrict the sizes of the dogs in the workshop. So if you had a couple of really reactive Chihuahuas and Yorkies and Springers and so on, and not Springers, I'll pick something smaller. And then you had big reactive dogs, you could, for the risk assessment element of things, you could separate and have, okay, we put all these bigs in one workshop, all the smalls in another workshop. Yes, of course, in the real world, they have to practice dealing with reactivity around big dogs and small dogs. However, you are a business. So if your Chihuahua slips the lead and gets to the big dog and gets killed, then we've got a big issue. Whereas if they're practicing the training at the class with other small dogs, they're getting to still practice their skills. They're still getting all the tips from the trainer. They're still getting the opportunity to do repetitions of the new behavior modification program, but they're less likely to have a fatality, which is a risk we want to avoid. Vetting the dogs prior to the workshop as well. So of course, and we'll talk about this later, you guys are going to be vetting all of your clients quite well, especially in the early days. If you're working up to becoming a certified behaviorist, then obviously you'll be able to take on a lot more interesting cases, and not that the other ones aren't interesting, but a lot more complex cases. Whereas right now you're vetting the dogs. So if you have a dog with a bite history to humans, or any aggression towards humans, I would recommend you refer that on to a certified behaviorist. If you have a dog who, when you assess them with the stuffies and so on, appear to be the type of dog that really wants to fight with other dogs, and it's a large dog, and you don't believe the owner is strong enough to control the dog in a small space, then you can say, look, this dog wouldn't be a good match for a workshop. We can do more one-to-one stuff. We can do more stuff in the field, out in real life. But the class environment may be too intense for your dog, or whatever way you want to phrase it. But you're just thinking, am I opening the doors for some significant incident to happen here? We need to stop as professionals thinking that if we say, this is risky, or we are going to minimize risk by changing things up or making it different for your dog. We're always afraid to say that, because they'll feel their dog is being picked on or excluded. But at the end of the day, you have to go with your gut in this industry, especially when we're dealing with topics like this, because if you don't, it'll be the biggest regret you'll ever have in your career. So if you're ever stuck for ways to word things, and you're working with a client and you want to say, I need to kick your dog out of the class, but I don't want you to think it's because it's a Doberman or something like that, then feel free to run by me, and I can give a suggestion. It may not be better than what you're already doing, but sometimes an extra pair of ears is helpful. So you're vetting the dog before it comes to your workshop. So that's why I would never, ever, 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 saying it just makes me laugh to think about it, host a reactivity class or a reactivity workshop without having met the dog, and without having worked with the dog and the clients beforehand too. So you're going to do that before your workshops anyway, which will give you a fair idea of how each dog is going to respond in the workshops. And usually there's not going to be many massive surprises. Vetting the client before the workshop too. So what level of responsibility are they showing? Are they able to manage the lead properly? Are they aware of potential dangers in the environment properly? Are they clued in basically, and have they gotten the basics of the steps that they'll need to implement? Or are they like totally not taking it seriously, dropping the lead, thinking it's no big deal, my dog just wants to say hello? And then they may not be clients that are suitable for the workshop. Have the safety tools on site as well, just in case a fight did happen. So things like pet corrector makes that loud, really sharp noise that if you place the pet corrector close enough to the dogs and press the button, the noise may be enough to startle them and they'll disperse. Putting a blanket over the aggressor's face and eyes can obviously be beneficial. Having those animal rescue nooses that you can buy them online, and having one of them so that you can separate the dogs from a distance can be the best safe way to break up a dog to dog fight. Because I also need to be careful without telling you guys, oh, this is how you break up a dog fight, because that's not what I'm teaching you on this course at all. And I would recommend taking a handling aggressive dogs course as well, but you do need to have precautions in place that if a fight did happen, how would you separate them? So buckets of water then as well are a handy thing to have. And I can't tell you what you should do if a fight breaks out, other than saying on a professional level, you should never put hands on fighting dogs. However, I will follow that with a story that I don't think I've told you. If I've told you guys, tell me. Someone tell me the one about when it was my daughter's birthday and we came across. I did tell you guys this, and I told you how I stopped the dog fight. Somebody tell me, because I don't need to tell that story again. About what I had to do with that dog in that incident. Try the finger up the bum twice. That didn't work. The dog didn't blink. Had to take off his lead, pop it around his neck, and tighten it. Okay, I didn't tell you the story. I did. I did. Okay. So the old man with the cowboy hat that was lying down on top of the dog, he is a foster pit bull. Oh, I did a few times. Okay, good. I'm not going to tell you guys again. Okay, but my point of that story is when I had to break up a dog fight that was not going to stop, the way I managed to do it was by cutting air supply of the aggressor dog. But I'm not telling you guys to do that. That's what I'm saying here. But also increasing your knowledge on handling aggressive dogs or breaking up dog fights is always beneficial when we're working with dogs at any level. And then the final thing, which I think, yes, Michael, I can never pronounce his name. He's a lot of good stuff as well. I wouldn't, hands down, you can never have children attending a reactivity workshop, ever, 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 no matter what level of responsibility the clients claim that their kids have. That's just a no-go. If they have to bring their kid, if you have an area where kids can sit that's secure, that they can't get to the dogs, and that the parents can see their child, then happy days, brilliant. But there needs to be strict mechanisms in place to make sure that the child doesn't come into the parents. Obviously, with any child under the age of, say, 10 to 12, there's the potential of like, no, I want my mom. I don't care about the rules. I want my mom. I want my dad. So if they're under 10, possibly as well, you may say, look, if your child doesn't want to stay in the safety area, then you'll need to leave. Or children 10 upwards normally are pretty good to sit down with like a book or I guess an iPad, and they can then keep themselves quiet. But safety first, they would arrive first. You'd bring the kids in first, put them in their zone, lock the door, or have some sort of barrier that you can properly lock that they can't open themselves while your back is turned. And then once they're in and sitting down all secured, that they'd be the first to arrive, and then you let the others in, and then obviously they're the last to leave then as well. Minimizing risks as well. So dog to human aggression, again, you're vetting your cases. So at this level, never take a case with a history of dog to human bite. Yes, that's the right way, not a human to dog bite. And tread carefully with dog to dog bites. When you're getting your history for the reactive dogs, you do want to know if fights have happened, and quite often with reactive dogs there has been incidences in the past, and usually they may not have been the instigator, and hence the development of the issue. So I wouldn't dismiss any dog that has a history of dog to dog bites. I would investigate it. Did the dog seek out the other dog and cause the bites, or was there a fight and your dog was defending itself as well? So just making sure you take that with a pinch of salt when you're finding out the history of the dog. Strict instructions prior to workshops on handling dogs. So obviously ensuring that the clients don't approach the other dogs and don't handle the other dogs, but you'd have made that well clear beforehand. Okay, so now I'm in the way again. So you want to control the environment, obviously, because there's risks in every environment. So if you're using an indoor dog-friendly environment, the odor of the other dogs may be additionally distressing for the dogs. So at our centre, we ended up going outside for a workshop But if you're inside, if there is smells of other dogs or sounds of other dogs or sights of other dogs, it can obviously be a massive trigger for your guests at the class. So take that into consideration. If you're using an outdoor environment, you're at risk to the weather, obviously, which can mean that, you know, your income is jeopardized by poor weather when people can't attend. Warm weather as well. What you got to remember is when these dogs are panting and when they're stressed, if they are panting when they're stressed, then they're going to overheat quite quickly as well. So if the weather is warm outside, and that comes into place with internal environments too, indoor environments, temperature is important because you need to remember these dogs are probably going to be more pant more than your puppy class and so on. So take that into consideration. If you're using an outdoor environment, you're at risk of glass, poison, other dangerous items causing injury to your client. So if you are using an outdoor environment, again, thinking of that. If you're using an unsecure environment, there's a risk other dogs can come and approach as well. So take that into consideration. Oh yeah, and obviously if another dog comes over and one of your client's dogs starts a fight with them, then your client could get injured. It all gets messy. Acoustics should be taken into consideration too, because in an indoor environment, if you don't have like soft fabrics and soft edges and soft kind of corners and so on, the room can become very echoey and very loud, and that can be quite distressing for the dogs present as well, even though they're the ones barking. I'm talking about barking, so obviously the acoustics don't really matter too much for humans talking, but we've got a couple of yappy dogs at a workshop. If in an indoor environment that's quite tinny, which or indoor environment can sometimes be a bit echoey and a bit loud, then you're better off. For us, sometimes we'll go outside where it's kind of the noise disperses that bit better. So I guess I don't really need to move myself. So generally, when you're doing your workshops, obviously you're going to have small class sizes. 6 for me is quite a lot. Even if you have 2 handlers, 2 trained-in handlers, 2 trainers, you're still at risk of a load of because the more numbers, the more probability that one or more of the dogs attending will be yappers. Yappers make it difficult for the entire class, for the other dogs present, and for you to be able to communicate with the class as well. So I'm comfortable with 4. I think that's a good size class. You might go with 6 small dogs if you wanted. It's up to you guys, but just make sure. No, I would never ever consider more than 6 in a class. Spectator spots are a good idea. It gives you a chance to entice potential clients in who may not want to commit to your full package. You might say, look, if you want to come and attend the workshop, it's $19.99 or $29.99, whatever you're going to charge for people to attend, remembering and making sure that they understand that these dogs have already been through session 1 and 2. So while they're able to observe what happens in your class, obviously they don't bring their dogs, the steps may not be applicable for their dog and their dog specific issues. So that if you purchase the package, it means session 1, I'll go through your dog's history, we'll diagnose what's going on with your dog and so on. Session 2, I'll give you the basic understanding of what we're going to be doing. And then workshops and onwards, we're implementing the behavior modification. So just making sure that they don't think, oh, I can go home and copy it because what's going on with their dog might be slightly different. But spectator spots are a good idea. It also means some people that may feel that, look, I've done session 1 and session 2. I don't want to go and book my dog in for a space in the workshop that might be, I don't know, $49.99 or whatever it's going to be. I'll just do a refresher for myself and I'll go and pay the 15 quid or whatever it is. You may have different prices for people who are coming to refresh their memory when they've already bought a package versus people who are coming to observe, to check out your classes and so on. So you guys can decide your business setup, but definitely small sizes, spectator spots are an option. A series of workshops can always work well. That's if you're going to do a reactivity course where it's a 4-week course, you might say, look, week 1, I'll book you in on either Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday evening. We'll meet your dog, we'll assess what's going on, so on and so forth. Then the following week, everybody comes every Thursday for the next 4 weeks. So it's a 5-week course. Week 1, they come in their own. Week 2, 3, 4, 5, they come with their. Week 1, they come with the dog too, but they're the only ones in the room. Week 2, 3, 4, 5, they've got workshops, and that way then what you can do is almost like combine your reactivity programs with obedience or with some fun stuff, or even with, I'd avoid high energy stuff like agility and so on, but you might do stuff about, you know, getting dogs to slowly weave through poles or go through tunnels. Or tunnels again might be a trigger because it's noisy and they move about. But anyway, the point of the matter is you can stretch the course over 4 weeks and add in other activities for them to do. So it's like while you'd focus on doing the behavior modification program for each workshop session, you might spend 30 minutes on that and 20 minutes on other fun stuff or light relief or nose work or mental stimulation activities or games, just fun things to engage the dog and make them enjoy the class too. It doesn't always have to be like learning. And then what you might do, it's up to you guys, is have potentially daily, weekly, monthly deliveries. So it might be a case that, look, I'm doing a block package that week 1, you come with your dog, and then week 2, you come to me Monday evening, Wednesday evening, and Friday evening. And that's your intense. Over 2 weeks, your dog will have done 4 sessions with us and you'll see a massive improvement. Or you might do monthly deliveries that once a month we meet up and have a catch up and do a reactivity workshop with a walk or whatever it's going to be. But there's lots of different ways. If you're going to specialize in reactivity, there's lots of different ways to make packages, whether it's the one-off, whether it's the viewer spectating on the workshop, whether it's the club that come every month or whatever it's going to be. You can really just go with reactivity because obviously there's a lot of it. There's a lot of clients out there needing it. Okay, so just randomly scanning over some resources you might need. So a body microphone, for those of you who do group training classes, you may already be using them. I think that they're pretty much essential in a class environment, especially in a class environment where you've got people around you, because then sometimes your clients might be standing behind you and your voice won't travel as well when your back is turned. So you can buy on Amazon pretty cheap these battery clip-ins. They just clip onto your trousers and it's a little headset, and that way then your voice is being amplified out behind you as well as your natural voice to the front as well. So it's a good way to make sure everybody can hear you, which is important. You're going to have your pods. That's really important. You're going to have potentially cones that will outline how far they can go. Stuffies or a bomb-proof dog. If you're using your own dog or another dog as the bomb-proof dog to kind of be in the environment, the stooge dog, while your clients are working through the behavior modification, then tread carefully as well. So if you're thinking about it, okay, I'm going to be doing 4 reactivity sessions a week between 1-to-1 sessions and classes, that's a lot for your own dog. If you're using the one dog to be exposed to, it's a lot of reactivity for them to be exposed to, a lot of intensity as well. So I would take care to ensure that if you are using the same dog regularly, that they do have lots of good relationships with other dogs, and that they're enjoying it. Obviously, you'll know yourself if your dog is enjoying it or not. Or you can alternate dogs. Stuff is obviously beneficial too. So it just depends on what works for you and your business. Smelly items are brilliant, especially with reactivity workshops, because if it's something really fragrant, especially if it smells like other dogs, it can give the reactive dogs quite a good outlet of information gathering without the conflict of like directly facing another dog and so on. What you can also do is get different scents of different animals. If you know anyone who works in a pet shop or has bunnies or has cats or has birds, budgies, anything like that, getting some of their bedding or discarded feather or fur and so on, and putting that in like into empty Coke bottles or into empty Tupperware cartons or lunch boxes or Chinese cartons even, just to have different kind of scent stations that you can then alternate what you're offering the dog to just give them something new and enriching to focus on, keep them front brain, keep them relatively calm, keep them engaged with their environment, and minimizes the reactivity then as well. Water bowls, obviously, you need to have your water bowls and your water. Additional spares, so spare leads, spare beds, spare clickers, spare treats, spare stuffed Kong, licky mats, etc. And again, the smelly items and the stuffed Kongs and so on are really beneficial as well for any dogs that do come in that are quite frustrated and quite yappy. It's good to give them something to focus on to distract them. Your clipboard, even to this day, I'll always have my lesson plan, even roughly sketched on my clipboard. I'll always have the clients' names and the dogs' names and breeds as well. Drinking, I will almost always, in the video, I don't think I have it, but I almost always have a bottle of water with me as well, just if your voice gets stuck or you need to have a minute and say, just, okay, guys, keep going there. Quickly get your little drink. It gives you a chance to kind of gather your thoughts as well. If you're a bit like, oh, what will I do next? What will I do next? You just want to break, like, take a moment to be like, I'm just going to grab a drink, grab your drink, come back, and then say, okay, do you know what? I'm going to give him a bit of a timeout. So why don't you just walk straight down to the end of the road with him and then come straight back to me or whatever you're going to do. Definitely if you've got more than 4 dogs, you would have to have a second handler with you. But if there is someone in your life that wants to get into the dog world, or there's other trainers that want to come and assist or anything like that, I would always recommend allowing that if it's not going to be detrimental to your business. But we all need to get our foot in the door somewhere. And having extra pair of hands for cleaning up, for setting up, for grabbing a poop, or doing whatever needs to be done is really, really beneficial. You guys probably already know this. Mop bucket, poo bags, all that kind of stuff you'd have ready. Canine and human first aid kits, important to have on site as well, wherever you are, especially if you're going to different locations that don't have a premises. Having them in your car is important too. Pet corrector, water buckets, crates as well. So if anything did kick off and you need all the dogs secure for a moment, just be like, guys, get your dogs in the crates. That's a handy way of dealing with whatever's going on. And definitely when you're doing the classes, you would need to have at least canine first aid and ideally human first aid as well, because they're coming to you as the expert. You want to at least be able to preserve life should anything happen. Which now I feel like I'm really starting to scare you guys off doing this group classes, but the group classes are my favorite because it's always it always surprises me how well they go, because you're always anxious. Because I normally do one workshop, I normally do session 1, session 2, and then a workshop. But even through going through this PowerPoint and stuff as well, I'm like, actually, maybe we should do a course. But they always go way better than you expect, which is always really lovely. But again, for humans, we like to push. So like I know in the video, because when I was doing the editing of the video, because I only did it recently, that the group workshop, I was like, oh, they're gonna literally tear me apart, because I keep being like, I want to push this more. There's more we could do, because they were doing so well. So activities during your class. So you can have a wide variety of activities at your group classes, from educational topics to coping strategies to behavior modification to games in the presence of other dogs as well. So, oh, that moved for me, not my slide. So owner education. So I would be careful with the amount of time you spend talking. Again, this is something you'll rip me apart when you watch the class in a minute, and I like to talk. You want to attempt to minimize the amount of owner education unless it's essential in the group classes. The more time you spend talking, the more likely for dogs to kick off, okay? And the owners are going to be focused on you instead of focusing on their dogs. The dogs are going to get bored, the dogs will get frustrated, and so on. So minimize the amount of chatting you do. Remember the power of emails afterwards, handouts afterwards, videos sent out afterwards, or having covered a lot of the content in session 1 and session 2. So you can say, guys, remember we spoke about the trust bank concept. So what I want you to do next time that car backfires, make sure you're doing your trust banks, anything like that. In situ educational opportunities allows for clients to see how they can apply their new knowledge. So that's where you'll spot something in the class. You'll be like, guys, okay, did anybody else notice that when I was walking up and down with my dog, he did that big shake off when your dog started barking? So that sounds quite that sounds very accusing. So your dog made my dog shake off. But when the truck backfired, see the way he did a big shake off. So that's what I'm talking to you guys about when you're watching the body language. If you see something like this, your dog's likely to be getting overstimulated over close to the threshold. So, or possibly past threshold if they're doing a shake off as well. So did you all spot it? Or someone's doing something with their dog and you point out something that they could learn in that moment? It's a great way to make the knowledge applicable and enter long-term memory, because I'm doing it right here. Oh yeah, she's right. It is easier for me to hold my treat in that hand. I'll do that a couple of times. Oh, much easier. Now I've perfected my skill of luring or whatever the person's doing. So while you want to educate people, and if you're doing a 4-week course, you can do some owner education stuff at the end of each class, or the last week might have more time for it as the dogs are calmer, but just avoid over talking when the dogs are like, hey, what are we doing? Can we get going here? And if it's something happens and you're able to point it out and educate the people there and then, that makes it more effective. At the end of the class, if all the dogs are content, you can recap some important tips then, or like I said, handouts, email, WhatsApp groups are a handy thing to do to keep good client retention, good client support, good client follow through. And a learning portal as well that we spoke about, like this, can be a handy way to put extra tips or extra videos. I mean, I'm not a great business guru type of person, but you do see people like developing these apps where like daily you'll get a bing and you'll get an update saying, hey, Reactive Dog Club, I was thinking today about this article, which is really applicable to what we spoke about at class yesterday, have a look, or whatever like that. It keeps you in their memory, and it's good for business, good for support, and good to keep them motivated to keep doing their work. So topics can include risks of aversives, telling off your dog. So obviously if you're in class and someone's being quite a bit punitive towards their dog, or a little bit of leash jerking, or telling off the dog, then you can somewhat bring it up in a roundabout way towards the end of class. Okay, guys, so one of the things we were talking about today as well is just remembering that anytime we're using anything that inflicts pain, fear, intimidation to your dog, they're going to increase their dislike of being around other dogs. So it's so important that when we're around other dogs, it's happy, smiley, thank you, more please. Almost like if you're bringing home a newborn baby to a toddler, you need to make sure that everything's wonderful for the toddler and the newborn baby so that they like the newborn baby. That's a silly analogy, but hey ho. So we're basically telling the dog that those other dogs there, but you were present. Coping strategies. So you'll cover them in your class. And it's a good thing to recap at the start of every class. Great starting point. Because they possibly need to use coping strategies during the class. They will, the most likely. I've never had a reactivity class that I've not used coping strategies. So you're going to recap the steps, then allow them to practice. Then you're watching, observing, seeing everybody do it, giving feedback if you need to, and then letting them carry on with the next thing. So obviously when we're doing reactivity workshops, we can't really demonstrate with the dog. One thing I would love to do, and I've spoken about it for 100 years, and I just think it'd be the coolest thing ever, would be if you had an internal environment, if you had a big projector screen, and then whatever part of the training you're talking about, you just had a clip on loop demonstrating the steps. So you'd like, on the tree, where's the dog's nose in the camera? Doing this, like the video literally just did the fourth, like if it's like YMCA, your video is doing it. I don't know how to do YMCA, on loop, so that if people get distracted or aren't focusing, they can look back up and focus on the screen again and see what they're doing wrong. But in real life, with your activity classes, you're not going to be able to demonstrate with a dog because that'll set up all the other dogs. So you can't even technically use a stuffy, but you can use the clients using their own dogs and use them almost like their own demos. So if anyone's struggling, you go around and say, okay, hold it like this, blah, 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 blah. And then they do their own demos, if that makes sense. And a lot of the stuff you will have discussed anyway in the first 2 sessions. So they should at least have a memory of it. Coping strategies, again, there's lots of them out there, but what I like to use is the squeak and retreat. So if the dogs do kick off and your dog is exploding, have that squeaky toy in your pocket, squeak, 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 and move back into your station. Find it is a great one again. Let's go, loose leash, watch me. These are all coping strategies that they can work on with the client. Coping, and like loose leash isn't technically a coping strategy, but it's something that we can keep the dog sub-threshold and their focus on the owner rather than on the other dogs. Explain when to use this in class. So if your dog does this, you need to use this one. If your dog's that, use the other one. And then it happens in real life. Okay, everyone, guys, I want everyone to do a find it while that car drives past us or whatever it is. Okay, so obviously every workshop should have a section on behavior modification. So there's lots of different options out there. On this course, we've discussed several of them. So with the seesaw method, that's for your fearful dogs, where it's going to be watch and learn, feel good factor, and tricks for treats. So that's where they observe for a while until they feel safe. And then they're going to start feeling good. So that's your counter conditioning, that every time they see it, they get a treat. And then you're going to do your operant conditioning, where every time they see it, you must do a sit and then they get a treat or a paw or whatever you want to use. And then the swings methods is more so for the frustrated dogs that do want to go and engage with the other dog, that we are tossing the treats over their head so they can swing forward, get their treats, let's go, move back, swing forward, get their treats, let's go, move back. And that keeps them moving and keeps them doing what they want to do, which is approach the dog. So just make them swings get wider and wider and wider. And then the merry-go-round again is very good for the frustrated dogs or for the dogs that need to be kept active. So keeping them moving around means you're getting the steps in. There's lots of exercise going on, as well as having the opportunity that at every 12 o'clock we do a watch and learn or a feel good or whatever element the dog is ready for at that moment. And then the tug of war is the leave it and reinforcing the leave it with the game of tug. So just be careful with the dogs that enjoy performing aggressive behaviors on other dogs. Be careful with them in a group class. If you're unsure, please check with me. I mean, if it's a tiny little one who's on a Hannibal Lecter straitjacket type of harness with 6 leads and a muscle maniac owner, should be okay, but safety first. Games that you can do in your class, just things to fill up the time and keep them having fun. Games are great if you have a series of classes, so that you need to fill up more time, that you're not going to just spend a full hour every week for 4 weeks in a row doing the exact same content. Scent work is obviously always great. So anywhere that you can put a ball pit with some treats in it, or you can have different stations with different scent areas that the dog needs to figure out, how do I get the food out of here while in the presence of other dogs? And that's an activity that usually, if you're going to do scent work, I would remove, potentially, depends how your class is going, potentially look at removing the barriers then as well. So if you're doing a 4-week course, ideally by the end of week 2, you should be getting down the barriers. You should have them up again at the start of each week, but earlier into the class, move them down and start being able to work in the same environment as other dogs. So nose work games are brilliant when you're sharing the environment with the other dogs as well. Hiding treats under the dog's bed, even letting them forage there. A bed sniffing parade. So I like to do that in classes too. You just need to be careful. So if you're doing a bed sniffing parade, you have an extra bed station that belongs to your own dog or to a neutral dog. So you're going to have 5 stations all spread out. You'll move your first dog first. Okay, Jane, you're going to move to station your left. Perfect. Once they're there, then Michael, station to your left. Once he's set up, then Julia, station to your left. And then Sean, station to your left, or whatever way it's going to go. And then, so they only move when you tell them to move. Otherwise, you don't want that backlog of lots and lots of dogs backing into each other, which happens in normal classes when you're doing loose leash training. But in this kind of class, you don't want that at all. But then they get to sniff every bed as they go around the station as well. So they're going to be more content in the environment a bit as well. Clicker training is a fun one that I like to use. Obviously, in a class environment, it's a bit more tricky because there's clicks going off left, right, and center. But dogs are very good at hearing, so they should be able to tune in specifically to your click because obviously they'll know the sound, the direction, and the volume of it as well. I really enjoy using clickers with reactive dogs. Probably the only real time that and complex behaviors, but I don't do much training of complex behaviors anymore. I would love to. So doing a little bit of clicker training and doing some games with clickers as well can be fun in the class environment, especially if your clients are using clickers to deal with the reactivity as well. Settling on a mat is a good exercise to do. It's not really a game, I guess, but keeping them on the mat and lots of reinforcement is fun for the dog. Hand targets as well can be a helpful game to play, just getting the dog target and then potentially targeting post-its and different locations. Again, gets them focused on the owner and what's going on in their environment. While I think dogs enjoy doing touch. I was going to say playing touch. So that can be a handy one as well. Can be worked on while stuffy calm down. The game, so it depends obviously what level you're at and where, like in your course, and you're like, are you in week 4 and they're all doing really well? Then you could get them doing hand targets, settling on the mat, clicker training, all that stuff, while the other dogs are parading. So you could say, okay, David, I want you to take Fluffy and I want you to do your loose leash training in a full lap, or I want you to do your merry-go-round, and each time you pass the station, that's where you're going to condition the dog to feel good, blah, 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 blah. As Fluffy's doing his circles, then the other dogs are working on whatever exercise too. So it gives you a chance to keep the dogs focused in their pods, doing what they should be doing and working on an exercise that's beneficial for them to do in the presence of other dogs, while dog A, dog B, dog C, dog D take that kind of one-to-one time where you work with them, using all the dogs as stooges, basically. Tug. So tug is a little bit of a high energy game as well. So if you're going to play tug in your class, I would use it for later in the class, because if you start a big game of tug and you've got a dog in the corner and you've got a room full of reactive dogs, it's not going to go well. But it is a good way to, I guess, increase the distraction as well, and the difficulty of remaining calm around other dogs. So it's good practice for the behavior modification program for the dog to still carry on maybe doing a watch and learn around a growling dog, or being able to do a DRA around a growling dog, and so on. You can do leave it training is obviously always beneficial for reactive dogs. We more so use it for dogs that want to go and eat other dogs. However, it's beneficial in all elements of life. So teaching a good leave it, using the option of leaving an item in the distance, is a handy game that you can play in your class, because then they can then apply that to other dogs. Now, I don't like to train leave it for a reactive dog if they're fearful or frustrated, because it can increase the frustration, increase the fear, more so for the dogs that want to eat other dogs. However, if I have a fearful reactive dog and I'm working through my behavior modification program, it's no harm training a leave it for circumstantial situations. So we're going out the door, there's a dog, we're about to get in the car, there's a dog across the road, I'm going to tell my dog, leave it in the car, good boy. So it has benefits, and it's also a cue that's beneficial to train your dogs. Distraction games, I guess, is what I'm talking about here. Where having the puzzles and the snuffle mats and so on is a great way to, if you have a very frustrated dog or a dog that's overwhelmed or anything like that, it's a great way to distract them from what's going on and let them have a nice time in their little pod. So structure of your workshop, and again, you will decide for yourself what works for you. But what I like to do is start off every class and every workshop with trying to get the dogs to focus on the owners. Obviously, extra important when we're dealing with reactive dogs. So you can do some basic obedience, you can do some games, you can get them playing with toys, anything that's getting their focus on the owners. If it's a group class that's going to go on over several weeks, I think it's beneficial to allow the clients to get to know each other. So again, there's that social element and support element as well. So allowing them to introduce themselves at the start of the class, and then each week allowing them to give an update how your week went. Didn't do much this week, did lots this week, and my dog had a disaster, whatever it is. It's a good way to support one another as well. Then what I generally would do would lead into your coping strategies first, because obviously they're the ones you might need to use during the class. Then you're going to focus on your behavior modification, and that's really where you want the dogs at their most focused. So obviously at the start of the class it's a bit overwhelming, the end of the class they're a bit tired. So normally from around 15 minutes into the class to 45 minutes, that's when you can really make good progress with your behavior modification. Minimize tired explosions by encouraging clients to reassure dogs. So that sometimes can happen too, that during the class the dogs are so focused on what's going on that they're doing a wonderful job, and then at the end of the class they're more tired, they're feeling full, they want to get out of there, so they can be a little bit more likely to explode. So that's where for the last 10-15 minutes I'd do kind of bonding exercises, getting the dog focusing on the owner again, calm exercises. So you might do tug with some dogs, that giving them a bit of fun in the environment. Other dogs, you might get the owners to bend down and just pet the dogs and calm them down, reassure them, a little bit of massage. Some owners may let them pick up the dogs. I have no problem with people picking up their dogs if the dog needs comfort. Where we do see the risk of picking up dogs is there's another aggressive dog and you pick up your dog. If the dog on the ground can reach the dog in the arms, there's just a massive surge in intensity of the aggression of the desire to get that dog when the dogs are up in arms. So obviously you're not picking up it depends. I mean, if I've got a tiny little 10-pound Chihuahua and there's 6 big St. Bernards running at him to attack him, I'm probably going to pick him up. But anyway, point of the matter is, in my classes, I've no problem people calming their dogs down by giving them a cuddle, depending on how the dog responds and if the dog wants it. I know sometimes people are like, you can't pick up your dog. I'm like, yes, you can. In this, you have this in the handout, but it's just an example of terms and conditions that you can have for your clients. It's super important, especially in group workshops, that you're drilling in risk assessment, you're drilling in terms and conditions, you're drilling in your policies and all that kind of stuff. If you have a waiver for them to sign, you're drilling that in too, because you are going to have a lot more risk when you're doing an Unleash Your Activity workshop than when you're doing a one-to-one session or normal training classes. So do make sure you vet the information you're giving the clients before they book and after they book, and making sure that they have read it and confirm they agree to it. Even as far as, like, obviously in a lot of booking systems, you can have click here to accept the terms and conditions. I'll often make it more obvious that they have to click each individual term and each sentence to say that they've read it and agreed to it, so that there's more probability of them actually reading it. And then usually we'll send out an email with important information for the class and just bullet pointing again what they need to know. They still don't do it. They still show up with one lead or not enough traits or whatever it is, but it's important to have it. And having a waiver then as well, just because, again, you do have that extra risk. Make sure that your insurance companies are fully aware as well of what you're doing and what it involves. So important before you start taking on the classes, because the last thing you want is a dog to get seriously injured, and it's on your books and you don't have insurance. So just make sure that you're covered from that side of things too. And then a couple of final tips. So just controlling the environment. So again, if you do have your own premises, that is that bit better. Just make sure you set it up fully in advance, and make sure you have everything kind of thought out before bringing dogs in there, especially for the group classes. Longer courses can combine kind of typical training classes content, but must always include behavior modification, because every class they need to be practicing it. Even though hopefully if you're doing a series of 4 classes, by the end of it, has very little reactivity going on, you're still remembering that every repetition is strengthening the neurological connection. That's what you really need to drill into people and say in your sleep, because coming to classes and having no explosions is what they're coming to classes to achieve. So it's a good thing. Don't be afraid to switch dogs out if you don't think they're going to be suitable. Don't be afraid to even mid-class say, look, I'm fine. I think he is finding it a little bit overwhelming. What I might do is let him go home, because I don't want this to become an issue for him. I don't want this to make the reactivity worse. And I think this environment may not be the right match for him. So if you want to sneak away, and what I'll do is I'll give you a call in the morning and we can talk through a better option for him. I have a few different options. So it's definitely with this class, it's not a case of one class fits all at all. Most classes we end up having to say, let's move one dog to a different option. So even though that might not be true, making sure they don't feel there's something wrong with their dog. But sometimes if you have a dog that just cannot get under threshold, then it's not the right thing for them to do. It's making things worse. They may need a veterinary behaviorist, and they're going to make your class a lot more difficult. You will get thrown. When you're teaching reactivity classes, and do wait until you've built up lots of experience of doing the one-to-one sessions, when you do take on classes, your adrenaline is going to be a lot higher than it is for normal classes. It should be. I certainly hope it will be. And you're constantly like hyper vigilant, and that extra level of like, I'm not an advocate for like energy drinks, but you almost like full on energy drink mode, like a superhero. So if there is a dog that's throwing you, it's not going to be beneficial for your ability to manage the class and control the class. So don't be afraid to, I'm not going to say kick a dog out because it comes across wrong. That's not what you're doing. To reallocate a dog to a different element of your repertoire, of your catalogue of options, for the sanity of everyone. I was teaching students recently to become dog trainers. And we had a puppy workshop, and I was like, oh, this could be so lovely. I've not had puppies in for a while, and so on and so forth. And we had one German Shepherdy, I don't know, probably German Shepherd Collie, because it was what a German Shepherd Collie would be. And it just yapped and air snapped, and just like the entire class, he was just not happy. But because the students were hosting it, I didn't want to interrupt their flow and so on. And we did, to be fair, we managed them quite well, and we put up visual barriers, and he got lots of treats in that class. But my goodness, I wasn't even teaching it, and it threw me so much. So there will of course be yappers, and you will always expect your reactivity classes for the first 10 to 15 minutes to be a bit chaotic. But they should settle down. After 10, 15 minutes, you should have peace and quiet. If not sooner, if you manage it really, really well. Choose the parading calm dog wisely. So the dog who you're using as your stooge, are they truly calm, or are they shut down, or are they just kind of flirty and overstimulated and happy and dancy and kissy and wonderful, wonderful, but really is that a sign that the dog is like, oh my God, I don't know what to do here. So just choose the dog carefully. Will they enjoy it? So you'll know your dog better. Are they going to be comfortable with being around other dogs that may be potentially reactive towards them, with the benefit of getting extra treats for walking up and down? So just get to know the dog. Will the dog be comfortable with it? Will you have a spare if things go wrong and the dog you're using as a stooge becomes reactive? Do you have the option to pull out another dog from somewhere? Can you change the dog depending on the day as well? And then your clients must fully understand that every walk from now on is a training walk. That's something, again, you're drilling in. Every walk is a training walk. You're either going to practice the old repertoire of behaviors or the new repertoire of behaviors. And if you're not setting up your walk as a training walk, then it's more likely you're going to have some of the old unwanted repertoires of behaviors, which we don't want. Final tips, final tips. Refer on if the case is complex, especially early days, and then ask, can you assist 100%? I love when people assist because it's an extra pair of hands, but it's also obviously massively beneficial for yourself. So if you're referring on to a behaviorist or a veterinary behaviorist, see if you want, and obviously if you have the time, see if there's a way that you can sit in on the case too, because you'll learn so much. Ease yourself in. Adolescent dogs are a great way to start, especially because a lot of them start becoming reactive. So you can almost start off as dealing with preventing reactivity. Do you have a dog under 1 year of age starting to show signs of reactivity? Did you know that if you address it now, before your dog becomes socially mature, your dog has a much higher chance of success? If so, sign up for our adolescent, whatever you're going to call your class. And obviously when they're adolescents, they're less time to practice the behavior so they're easier to mold. Practice with your own non-reactive dog. So what I mean by that is practice the steps, practice your swings and roundabouts and seesaws and all that stuff. Do as much hands-on training yourself as you can. Help your friends and family with their reactive dog for half price initially. That's a good way I always say it to people as well, if you're going to launch a new product or service and you're new to it, reduce it. So double what you wanted to charge and reduce it by 50%, or you know what I mean? So like if you're planning on saying 100 quid an hour, then you can say it's normally going to be for 5 sessions, it's normally 500 quid. However, for the first 6 months, we're going to be offering for 250. This price won't last, and blah, blah, blah. Body language, body language, body language. So dealing with reactivity, you need to be able to feel what the dogs are thinking. And while we very much say that understanding body language is science, not an art, it's not like magic, it's not Dr. Dolittle. You need to then be at the level that you can interpret the dog's thoughts and feelings almost like fluently. And that's not to say that you will always be able to interpret what the dogs are saying. They always surprise us. But for me, working in like doggy daycare was massively beneficial. Anyone working in rescue, kennel environments, anywhere where you're working with a lot of different dogs, you're going to build up your knowledge of body language. However, I would always say make sure you formal qualifications in body language so that you do know what you're recognizing instead of just having your gut instinct be, ooh, subconsciously, I'm not aware why, but when I see the whites of the dog's eyes, I know to give him more space. You don't know why you're giving that dog more space. Really, you say, oh, he doesn't look happy, but what's telling you that? So get formal qualifications on understanding body language so that you can say, okay, because I see this, I'm now interpreting this as a dog that's requesting space. But once you have your formal qualifications, you need to speak. It's like learning how to speak a language. You then need to go to the country and speak it. So if I'd imagine, because again, you're dog trainers, you do have a decent understanding of body language and formal qualifications. If you haven't got formal qualifications in body language, get them. And I'm not using this as a promo because I forgot that I'm doing 50% off my online body language course. But I just mean any body language course from a competent professional is critical because you need to know what you're talking about before you see it. So even if you spent all your life around dogs, I spent all my life around dogs, I still found body language courses and DVDs massively, massively, massively beneficial at the start of my career. Then I immersed myself in doggy daycare. I was going to say, the rest is history. But from there, then it's like riding a bike. Like I'm not in daycare that much at all anymore, but I still feel like I can look at a video and I know what he's doing. So on that note, so I have an online course for Comprehensive Canine Communication Certificate, and there's 50% off with the code PDRS50. Don't give that to other people. That's just for yourselves if you wanted to do it. Continuing to upskill with reactivity then as well. So as we know from the course, there's lots of different ways to unreactive or reactive dog, and there will continue to be new ways. So there'll always be new information coming out there. The subject matter of reactivity is so very well covered in our industry. So I don't know if you guys know of Towser Dog. I don't know if I mentioned it to you guys before. TAWZER dog is the website. I don't know if it's .org or .com or whatever it is, but that has, when I started my career, I was doing courses, but I did the maths one time. I went through all the receipts and I think I spent around 3.5 grand on DVDs, just of different seminars around the world that I could have been sitting in the classroom with a pen and paper, but instead I'm in my pajamas with a cup of tea and I can pause it, make my notes, press play, pause it, take my notes, press play, rewind it, rewatch that bit. So Towser Dog is a brilliant place to go for additional sources of educational opportunities. Some of the DVDs and webinars on Towser Dog are applicable for CPD points as well. If any of you are members of organizations that require CPD points, let me know, because it's a little bit late now, week 10, but I'm like, oh, I probably should have like submitted applications to the different organizations to appoint points to this course, which reminds me that when I write a course, I get points for it too. So this will give me some of my CPD points. But if you do need points for any organization, let me know and I will try my best to get that sorted. Continue to upskill. This course is an excellent bridge to behaviourist accreditation. What I mean by that is for a lot of behaviourist organizations, which is double-edged, you need to have built up a decent list of cases before you can apply, but you also really should be a behaviourist before you apply for a lot of things too. So if you're building up cases of dealing with reactivity, that will be very applicable to your applications for any behaviourist organisations. And the content on this is quite heavy as well. So it would, if you're looking at becoming a behaviourist for any of the recognised organisations, this is hopefully a beneficial stepping stone. So Melissa's saying that she wants to do the behaviours course, but she hasn't done my courses, but she's done the APTT accreditation. You would need to fire me an email about that. So for our teaching, what I generally do, depending on what country I'm in, is we have a practical dog training course, which gives you lots of practical dog training skills, which you can apply to your own dog, apply to your friend's dog, so on and so forth. Then we have the professional dog training instructor course, which teaches you to train people to train their dogs. And then we have the professional dog behavior consultant course, which teaches you to become a behaviorist. You need to be a working dog trainer to do that one. So usually you'll need to have done, for me, the easiest option if you've done PDT and PDTI, and then you can do PDBC. But of course, there's equivalent courses as well. So if you have done other courses and you do want to do a behaviourist course with me, you just need to send the credentials in. So send your credentials in to me, anything, even if it's DVDs, all that kind of stuff as well, how long you've been working, how many cases you generally see and so on. And I'd imagine, I mean, you've done this, so if you find this doable, you should be well able. But the reason that I like people to have done all the courses is there's no point me going on the behaviourist course and talking about certain elements of learning theory and it was never covered on the course you'd done, or certain elements of, you know, how dogs learn and you guys hadn't learned it already. So that's why it's easiest for me to be like, do ABC. But of course, there's many ways. Again, I really don't want to say what I always say in this class, in this one module. I don't want to say it about what I normally say, but there's many ways to do many different things. Anyway, okay, so that is us done for this webinar and for all of the wait, is it? Oh yeah, the exam. So for the online exam, I have initially provisionally scheduled it. That should be June, for June 13th at 7 p.m. So basically Thursday, 2 weeks. That should be June. It should be the 13th. In 2 weeks' time, it is indeed. So if anyone cannot take the exam, then please let me know, because I'll have to make a separate exam. While it's highly unlikely that you guys are very adamant that you're going to be messaging each other answers and questions and all that, just to do my best to minimize any element of cheating. I want to make sure that anyone doing the exam are all doing it at the same time. So you'll have an undisclosed amount of time and an undisclosed number of questions on the exam, which means it's set up to give you enough time to read the question twice, look at the answers, select the one that you think is correct and move on. So you'll have enough time to maybe spend, 30 seconds, 45 seconds in each question. It's how we always do our exams. So if you've taken any of my online exams before, you'll be comfortable with it. But basically, if you're stopping and going through your notes or searching online, you'll end up running out of time, which means you'll cheat on the first 10 questions, but you won't get to the next 10. So just be aware of that there's not really enough time to cheat, so please don't cheat. Variety of multiple choice questions, fill in the blank, and short questions. Spelling does matter, but your answers will be verified. So if there's minor spelling mistakes, I will be going through your results before I send out your certificates as well. So you'll get your results and certificates emailed directly to you within 48 hours. It depends on how the system is working at the minute, because I've not used this system for the exams on this website, but sometimes you will see your provisional results straight away. If you get that, don't take that as gospel, because there may be some spelling issues or there may have been some errors. Sometimes you get glitches and you get, gremlins in the system. So I will be going through each person's exam anyway to make sure that the answers are all what they should be. And then we're finally finished. So thank you guys. Thank you everyone who took this course. Those of you now and those of you watching later. And those of you hopefully who get to hear. If you can hear me, if you hear this message, this means that I'm still alive, but you've completed the course. So well done for getting to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you feel more knowledgeable. I hope you are ready to get your hands on reactive dogs, but remember, don't touch the dogs. And hopefully you'll have lots and lots of success working with lots of dogs and helping dogs. Yes, Lara, the exam will be through the portal. But yeah, there's so many dogs out there. And for me, the first 5 years of my career, I was the only behaviourist in Ireland. Felt like there was no case I couldn't take on because there wasn't other people that they could go and see and so on. So being able to educate people to take on cases for me is delegating. So I'm like, if the more people who take these courses, the more people out there treating dogs the right way, the more dogs getting the right care and so on. And the industry is now, there's lots of us out there and there's lots of experts out there helping a lot of dogs. So the more people we get into the course, the better. What I will say, and it's so bad, like I hate this stuff so much, but if any of you do want to send over a review, I can't even talk, a review of the course, it would be really beneficial because once the course is finished, I will polish it up and just like edit out the waffly bits because I like to waffle, and make it available for people to book as well. And we'll be redoing the live versions as well. So if anyone does want to email over a nice review of the course, and if you potentially wanted to include a picture of you, maybe in your workwear or something to do with your business. That way then when I'm promoting the course, I'll be able to tag your business in it and say, this review is from so-and-so from this business who said this. And if you say bad stuff, I'll just edit out the bad stuff. But no, if you could email that over to me or go on to I think it's there Nancy Creedon. I had, for some reason, I set up a Nancy Creedon Google Maps thing and set it up in the Glasgow location, but then I set it up and I think I had one review. And then when I did all my Safe End Dog Trainer review, someone else created a new Google Maps thing and gave me a bad review on it. So if you do want to go onto Google Maps or just onto Google under Nancy Creedon, you can leave a review. I'm really getting desperate now. I'm still waffling about a subject matter I hate to waffle about. But if you want to email me a picture and a review, that'd be really beneficial for me because it means I can help more people know I can sell more courses, let's not lie, and get more people in. So the exam will be in 2 weeks. Email me any questions you have. It'll show up in your portal at 7 o'clock Thursday 2 weeks, which is June 13th. If anyone can't attend at that time, let me know. Hopefully you'll all have long, successful careers dealing with reactivity and nicer stuff. And like I said many times, if you ever do run into struggles or concerns or anything like that, please do contact me because I like to help. I like to, like a busybody, I like to give my opinions and my thoughts and things. You may still go with whatever you think or you believe, but I'm more than happy to be there to support you guys as well. So thank you very much. Good evening.